This tree has been alive on this planet for 290 million years. It watched the dinosaurs arrive. It watched them leave. It survived the Permian extinction that killed 96% of all life on Earth. It survived the asteroid that ended the Cretaceous. It survived 5 mass extinctions, ice ages, continental shifts, volcanic winters, and a nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And right now, in the wild, it is endangered. Not because of an asteroid, not because of a volcano, because of us. One generation, that is all it took. The tree is Ginkgo biloba, and if you have walked through any major city in the world during autumn, you have almost certainly walked past one without knowing what it was. It is the tree with the fan-shaped leaves that turn solid gold in October and November, and then drop all at once. Almost overnight, like the tree collectively decided to undress in a single evening. It lines streets in New York. It lines streets in Tokyo, Paris, London, Berlin, Shanghai, Seoul, and hundreds of other cities across the globe. It is everywhere. And because it is everywhere, because it is planted on sidewalks like decoration, most people assume it is just another urban landscape tree. Something the city parks department chose because it looks nice and handles pollution. It is not just another tree. It is the oldest surviving tree species on the face of this earth. And what I am going to walk you through today will fundamentally change the way you look at it the next time you pass one on the street. And here is what is going to surprise you. The thing that is killing this tree in the wild is not climate change. It is not a disease. It is not an insect. It is not a natural disaster. It is something far more specific and far more human. And once you see it, once you understand the full scope of what this tree is and what we are doing to it, you cannot unsee it. You will never walk past a ginkgo tree again without feeling the weight of what I am about to tell you. So let me back up and start from the very beginning, because the story of this tree starts before anything you would recognize as life on land even existed. 290 million years ago, during the Permian period, the order Ginkgos first appeared in the fossil record. To put that number in perspective, dinosaurs did not show up on this planet until roughly 245 million years ago. That means this tree predates the dinosaurs by at least 45 million years. When the very first dinosaurs took their very first steps on Earth, ginkgo trees were already ancient. They were already established across the landscape. They had already been growing quietly for longer than the entire reign of the dinosaurs would eventually last. Let that sink in for a moment. The dinosaurs came, dominated the planet for 165 million years, went completely extinct, and this tree was here before them and is still here after them. And then the extinctions began, and this tree survived every single one. 252 million years ago, the Permian-Triassic extinction hit. Scientists call it the Great Dying. It was the worst mass death event in the entire history of life on this planet. 96% of all marine species were wiped out. Roughly 70% of all land vertebrate species were erased. The planet came closer to being sterilized of complex life than at any other point in its 4.5 billion year history. Ginkgo survived. 201 million years ago, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction struck. It killed off most large land animals, most large amphibians, and cleared the ecological stage for dinosaurs to rise to dominance. Entire families of species vanished. Ginkgo survived. 145 million years ago, the End-Jurassic transition brought another wave of extinction, particularly among marine species and some land organisms. Ginkgo survived. 66 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 6 miles wide slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact ended the Cretaceous period. It killed every non-avian dinosaur on the planet. The blast generated temperatures hot enough to ignite forests across continents. The debris cloud blocked out the sun for months. Global temperatures swung violently. Food chains collapsed from the bottom up across every ecosystem on Earth. Ginkgo survived. Then came the ice ages of the Pleistocene. Glaciers advanced and retreated across the northern hemisphere repeatedly over the past 2.5 million years. Temperatures plummeted. Habitats shifted. Species that could not adapt went extinct by the thousands. Ginkgo survived. It retreated to refugia in what is now eastern China, waited out the cold, and held on. Fossils of ginkgo leaves from 200 million years ago are nearly identical to the leaves on a ginkgo tree growing on a sidewalk in Manhattan right now. Nearly identical. The tree has barely changed in 200 million years. It did not need to evolve. It did not need to adapt dramatically. Whatever survival strategy it developed 250 million years ago has worked through every catastrophe this planet has produced. That is not luck. That is engineering at a level we do not fully understand. And then, on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. The blast flattened virtually everything within a mile of the epicenter. Buildings were obliterated. Trees were incinerated. Tens of thousands of human beings were killed instantly. In the weeks and months that followed, scientists surveyed the blast zone, assuming that nothing biological could have survived that close to ground zero. They were wrong. Within 2,200 meters of the blast center, ginkgo trees were found still standing. They were charred beyond recognition. They were stripped of every single leaf and branch. Their bark was blackened and cracked, but they were alive. The following spring, those trees budded. Green shoots emerged from scorched wood. They grew leaves. They kept growing. They are still alive today. 81 years later, they stand in Hiroshima as living monuments. They are called the Habaku trees, the survivor trees. Plaques mark their locations across the city. People travel from around the world to visit them. A species that cannot be killed by an atomic bomb is now a symbol of resilience and hope. In a city that was erased from the map and chose to rebuild itself from nothing. Now, if you have been following along and you are thinking this sounds like the most indestructible living thing on the planet, you would be close to correct, and the science behind why it is so resilient is genuinely extraordinary. In January of 2020, a team of researchers led by scientists at Yangzhou University in China published a landmark study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, one of the most prestigious peer-reviewed journals in the world. They studied the vascular cambium of ginkgo trees, which is the thin layer of cells between the bark and the wood that is responsible for producing all new growth. They examined trees ranging from 15 years old all the way to 667 years old. What they found defied conventional understanding of biological aging. The cambium of the 667-year-old trees showed no measurable signs of cellular decline. None. The genes responsible for cell division were just as active as in a young tree. The genes responsible for disease resistance were just as active. The genes responsible for wood formation and cellular repair were functioning at the same level regardless of age. There was no programmed deterioration, no slowdown, no split. A plant physiologist who was not involved in the study reviewed the findings and told the journal Science, and I am quoting directly, "Aging is not a problem for this species. The oldest individual ginkgo tree on record is 3,500 years old, documented by the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew in London. 3,500 years old, and biologically no different from a tree that is 100. Scientists have described this as a form of theoretical immortality. Not true immortality, because the tree can be physically destroyed, but a biological system that simply does not decline with time, as far back as 1967. A study published in the journal Science noted that Ginkgo biloba demonstrates unusual resistance to pests, including insects, bacteria, viruses, and fungi. A comprehensive biological flora review published in the Journal of Ecology in 2022 confirmed the same findings, noting that ginkgo is highly resistant to insect feeders and pathogens of every major category. On top of that, it tolerates drought, freezing temperatures, fire, heavy air pollution, heavy metals in soil, and low-level salt exposure. This is why every city on Earth plants it on sidewalks next to buses and taxi exhaust. It can handle urban heat islands, compacted soil, restricted root space, polluted air, and road salt runoff, and it simply keeps growing as though none of it is happening. And the chemistry inside its leaves is equally remarkable. Ginkgo leaves contain over 40 bioactive compounds, including flavonoids and terpenoids that have been the subject of extensive medical research. A standardized leaf extract called EGB 761 has been tested in multiple randomized clinical trials. A meta-analysis published in the journal Clinical Interventions in Aging reviewed the combined data and concluded that EGB 761 showed statistically significant improvements in cognition, activities of daily living, and overall clinical impression in patients with dementia compared to placebo. A randomized trial published in Nature Scientific reports in 2023 found that in patients with mild cognitive impairment, the same extract demonstrated clear superiority over placebo in measures of memory and attention. Research supported by the National Institutes of Health has shown that ginkgo extract increases cerebral blood flow, meaning it literally helps more blood reach your brain. Classical Chinese scholars were using ginkgo seeds in medicinal tonics for asthma, bronchitis, coughs, and mental clarity centuries before modern clinical trials confirmed what they already knew. The tree has been part of traditional Chinese medicine for as long as traditional Chinese medicine has existed. And all of this, every single fact I just told you, makes what comes next almost unbearable to say. This tree, the sole surviving species of its genus, which is the sole genus in its family, which is the sole family in its order, which is the sole order in its subclass, a taxonomic isolation so extreme that there is literally nothing else alive on Earth that is even remotely related to it. Ranked number 1 in evolutionary distinctiveness among all gymnosperms by the EDGE method. Developed by the Zoological Society of London and used by the IUCN, is currently listed as endangered on the IUCN Red List, endangered. A tree that has survived everything this planet can throw at it for 290 million years is now classified as being at serious risk of extinction. Because of humans, in the wild, Ginkgo biloba exists only in China. For centuries, scientists actually believed it was completely extinct in the wild. Every single ginkgo tree you see in every city in the world is a cultivated copy, propagated in nurseries, cloned, shipped, planted by human hands. The wild originals, the genetically diverse natural populations that carry the full accumulated evolutionary heritage of a 290 million year lineage, exist only in a few small, fragmented, vulnerable locations in eastern China. The Tianmu Mountain National Nature Reserve in Zhejiang Province is considered potentially the only place on Earth where a genuinely wild ginkgo population still exists. Some of those trees are over 1,000 years old. The populations are tiny. They are isolated from each other. They are surrounded by human development on every side. China lost 410,000 hectares of natural forest in 2020, alone, according to data from Global Forest Watch. The wild ginkgo populations sit within landscapes, under constant pressure from agricultural expansion, urban development, road construction, and logging. The Chinese government has designated ginkgo as a nationally protected species, but enforcement is inconsistent and funding is insufficient. The habitat is shrinking year by year, and while the habitat shrinks, the ginkgo biloba supplement industry continues to grow. It is now worth over $2 billion globally. The extract is sold in every pharmacy, health food store, and online marketplace on the planet. Companies market it for memory support, for improved circulation, for brain health, for anti-aging. They reference the traditional use. They profit enormously from the chemistry this tree spent 290 million years evolving, and virtually none of that $2 billion flows back toward protecting the wild populations that hold the genetic diversity the cultivated sidewalk trees do not carry. We figured out how to monetize this tree. We never figured out how to protect the original. So let me make this as simple and as uncomfortable as it needs to be. We have a tree that has survived for 290 million years. It outlived the dinosaurs. It survived 5 mass extinction events. It survived a nuclear bomb at close range. Its cells do not age after 600 years. It is resistant to virtually every known disease, pest, and environmental stressor. Its leaves produce compounds that increase blood flow to the human brain. It is the only living connection between ferns and conifers. It has no relatives anywhere on Earth. It is the last of its entire evolutionary line, and it is endangered. Because of us, not over millions of years, not over thousands. In one generation, we planted millions of genetic copies on sidewalks around the world for decoration. We never bothered to protect the irreplaceable wild originals. We turned its chemistry into a $2 billion supplement industry. We never invested a meaningful fraction of that back into its survival. We call it a living fossil in botanical garden plaques, as though that is a charming piece of trivia. It is not trivia, it is a warning. A living fossil means everything else that ever shared its world is dead. And if we do not change course, the fossil will join them. Not because of an asteroid, not because of a supervolcano, not because of an ice age. Because we walk past it every day and never stop to ask whether it needed us to do anything other than leave it alone. If you take just one thing away from this today, let it be this. This tree does not need us to survive. It has been surviving since before anything on Earth had legs. What it needs is for us to stop being the first thing in 290 million years that it cannot survive. A nuclear bomb could not do it. An asteroid could not do it. 600 years of time cannot age it. But one generation of human indifference can erase it. And that is not a legacy any of us should be comfortable leaving behind. Share this with someone who walks past a ginkgo tree every day and does not know what they are looking at. Because the first step to protecting something is knowing it exists. Until next time, keep growing.